Okay, we're going to run these two today for a little bit. Breaking down these logs. Their chains both have a little time on them, so they're sharpening wise, they're about the same. I had touched that one up the other day. Now, this is a 70s design, and this is actually much later in the 80s. Homelite's last stand. So anyway, what I was saying is the Husqvarna predated the Homelite in design by quite some time, and interesting, they have some characteristics that are the same. Gas and bar oil in the tank handle on both of these. This one here is plastic, although the later version, the 8800, they put a die-cast aluminum handle there. The plastic was too brittle. But anyway, it's interesting to me that Husky took that design feature and, you know, they used it and they left it behind, and Homelite went to it when they were at the end of their cycle. Both of them have the chain adjuster in the case, which I think is a little bit of a PITA, and both of them have rudimentary anti-vibe that actually works pretty good on both of them. That saw there, that Homelite, for all its goofiness, really has features which make it really easy to run. A little pain in the neck to service. Now, if you look at this air box, it's like they stole a little bit from Husky in terms of the overall layout design, but that's kind of steel-like, where they have the air box contained in the handle like the Steels do. And I don't know who came up with it first. This was during the period of time that Homelite was fairly heavily influenced by Solo, so there could be some German influence. It has, like all Homelites did, the throttle stop for high idle, you know, and this one here has the throttle stop with this lever up here, which is pretty much pure Husky. Both of them have their choke on the right hand side, stop switches the same way, stuff like that. So a lot of the details are pretty much the same. From my perspective, I can really live with that saw, and that's a big surprise. It's actually lighter than that big metal chunk of aluminum that's that Husqvarna. But in terms of power characteristics, I don't know. One of the things I keep talking about is life with a saw, and those things that can distract you from doing work. And I don't care if it's a brand new saw that's too loud or an old saw you can't start. It's those things that enter into your mind and take your focus away from the job at hand, which detract from a saw's attractiveness to me, you know. So between those two saws, that one really doesn't have a lot. For that matter, it has something on the other side. It's kind of an oddity. It always beats the odds, which adds to the joy factor. On the Husky, I'm always nervous about getting it started, so that's a detraction, and plus it just feels heavier. And even with a shorter bar, that's why I put the Suji on there, to try to take the weight down some. But anyway, so here's just some life with a saw, doing work, going through the tops, me and my son, breaking them down, and then this is going to be next year's firewood. And I have a bunch from logging operations over the last couple of years. That's what I do. And so I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to park the camera and take these saws and bring on the other side. I've got to be careful still with my situation. So this is another installment with life with a saw, right? Two older saws, actually I would say antiques at this point, because one's from the 70s, one's from the 80s. And that's a long time ago. It's like, you know, that's a long time. And life with a saw starts with putting in bar oil and chain, you know, the chain lube type stuff, but putting gas in there. But ultimately, life with a saw starts with with starting it. So it's either a big detraction, which gets you all huffy and puffy before you get to work, or it's something that's not such a problem. So we're going to start with that. And I'm going to put the camera right in this stand right here. Try to level it out some. And let it run. Well, I don't know. You might be getting a sense that one is quite a bit easier to live with than the other, simply because of how it starts and idles and runs. So, yeah, this saw here is a clear winner in terms of the life of the saw right now. So I think what I'm going to do is put it away and start working on that 285 and spend some time with a screwdriver and see if I can't get it to match this whole Homelite. How's that? One of the things about those old Huskies is they've got the enriching device in the carburetor as a rev limiter. It's a little ball bearing and spring, so no matter how much you lean it out on top, it's still going to hit that burble. And for that matter, you got to be a little careful because you'll tune those carburetors too lean, trying to get the RPMs out of them, and really all you're doing is you're running it lean right up to the point it hits that that device, you know, rev limiter. All right, let's see if we can get it fired up again. That would be a good start. And I'll do a cookie with it if I can get it to start. I would not be surprised if in the way that was acting that I just had either a fuel line fail or melted a wire in the ignition. But what a difference, huh? But this is what you got to do. This is how you have to sort them out when you have an old vintage saw like that. But not done. I'm going to try to get it going, see if I can get it to continue running. I'll tell you one thing about that saw, it is not lacking for horsepower. Even in its compromised form right there, it's got plenty of power. Oh, that damn thing's out of gas. Huh. Which is the other thing, difference between the Husky and the Homelite. That Homelite really just sips the fuel. It's very fuel efficient, even for a modern saw. This thing here is a hog. Of course, I had it running too rich in the beginning, but either the tank is really small or the difference in fuel usage is significant. So there's a lot of potential there. You know, it's not running just right, so it's not a fair comparison. So let's call that a solid development. And remember when I first started with the Homelite, it was like the same kind of a problem. And I feel like instinct that it either has some problems inside the carburetor, which I'm not going to get to with a normal clean, or it has either a pulse or a fuel line issue. But being dependent on the fuel level like that points to the, the fuel line. That's usually what it is when it's that kind of thing. So I've got a bunch of them. It's pretty much the same fuel line that is used in the 200 series. Well, it is a 200 series. It's just an early one. But like a 266, 272, that molded fuel line is what it has. So this will be a truncated video just to show off the Homelite. What a nice saw. And this one is heavier. It does vibrate more. But when it's actually tuned where it's running good, it has probably more power. It's a powerful beast, even though it's only an 85cc or 80cc saw. It's got a lot of power. So anyway, enough for today.